Today we have the great opportunity to hear from Lew Cramer, a longtime friend of mine and of the university's. He is the Utah CEO for Colliers International. Lew is part of the fastest growing publicly listed commercial real estate company in the world. Colliers' commercial real estate network of 14,000 professionals in over 500 offices in 68 countries provide the full range of commercial services worldwide with annual revenues of over $3 billion. Previously, he served as the founding CEO of the World Trade Center Utah, a public-private partnership assisting Utah companies to succeed internationally as part of the 300 World Trade Centers around the globe. During his tenure there, Utah's international exports tripled to dramatically help expand America's fastest-growing state economy. During the Reagan and the first Bush administration, he served as the Director General of the U.S. Commercial Services and Assistant U.S. Commerce Secretary of the International Trade, leading the U.S. government global team of 1,400 commercial officers at embassies worldwide. Lew also helped lead U.S. West creation of the first cellular phone system in 20 countries, including projects in Asia, Europe, South America, and the former USSR. In 2016, Governor Herbert appointed Lew as the Utah Transportation Commissioner, and he has also served on various boards in private and public sectors, none more important than the 16 exciting and proud years on the National Presidential Advisory Board at Utah Valley University. Lew attended Stanford University and is an honors graduate of the charter class at BYU's J. Rubin Law School. He taught for many years at business schools at USC and Georgetown. He and his wife Barb live in downtown Salt Lake City and are the parents of 6 children and grandparents of 14 grandchildren. If there's any time left for a speech after that lengthy introduction, let me introduce Lew Cramer.
Well, thank you, Tom, and what an honor to be here at Utah Valley University. It's a delight to be with Tom McDonald, whom I adore for the work he's done, and with Dean Norm Wright and Tyler and the others here. And my cousin, Dan Hatch, who's a professor in digital media, came over because he wanted a free lunch. So that's what cousins are for, and thank you so much for coming. I want to make one thing really clear at the outset. I love Utah Valley University. Woo! Got my tie, got my pen. I am so grateful for what you're doing, and you're a participant and a beneficiary in one of the great experiments in higher education in America. And thank you for what you're doing. I walk around these halls, and it just feels good. And it should feel good. I mean, I want you to succeed. You're going to be paying my Social Security. I really want you to do well. And Tom mentioned that I've been on the President's National Advisory Committee for 16 years. I started when I was in Washington, D.C. with President Cederberg and then President Holland, and now with President Jimenez. And just every time I come here in 16 years, the growth has been phenomenal. I am so impressed with those opportunities that you're experiencing. It reminds me of something that President Jimenez said recently in an interview, and I have to just quote from this. Persevere. Things don't always come easy. Research shows that it's not your IQ or overall leadership quality that makes you succeed. It's your ability to persevere and have grit. G-R-I-T, grit, right? Never give up. Learning is not fixed, so keep a growth mindset. We should not give up because we're not comfortable or things are particularly challenging. Ask for help from a peer, from your advisors, from your professors, from your business school deans. You know, that's important. She didn't say that, but I knew she meant to say that. Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. Take it a day at a time. What a great reminder of what we're doing here at Utah Valley University. I say Utah State University. My 98-year-old father-in-law just got an honorary doctorate from Utah State University. So there's a little Aggie blood here and there, too. You know, I went to BYU, so a little bit of a conflict, but it's a great conflict because so many good things are happening here. I have to tell you that when we first started the National Advisory Board, which was 17 years ago, they sat down and they said, what are some things we can do? And the thing that I was so impressed by, everything that we recommended, President Cederberg and President Holland said, yeah, let's do that. I'm used to, other universities, unnamed, they're happy to have you come and give advice on advisory boards, but they just want you to have a nice meal, go to a basketball game, and just send us a check. And the difference was, Utah Valley University, they really wanted ideas about what could be helpful. And I still remember walking into the room and talking about engaged learning. I'd never heard of the idea. We kicked it around. We said, let's try engaged learning. Utah Valley University is a huge laboratory, 16 years ago, for anything like this. And it worked. And you are the recipients of the blessings of that engaged learning. The second thing that we made a pitch for was, we said, Utah Valley is going to boom. The word Silicon Slopes had not been heard, but the beginnings of many of these high-tech firms started. IM Flash was just getting out of the ground. And I said, based on my experiences, BYU doesn't really want to take credit for this kind of thing. That's just not their thing. But it's going to boom, and Utah Valley is going to be fabulous. Let's take some credit for it. And why not? That's a lot of life. I practiced law for a long time. I had a partner, he said, lots of people can practice law, but it's all about the marketing. Well, Utah Valley University has done a great job in marketing. And I have my cousin here who's a professor, Professor Hatch, of digital media, but it's all about marketing. And that's what Utah Valley has done a beautiful job as Silicon Slopes has boomed, as we provided the student and talent for them out of this university. When people think of Silicon Slopes, I think, at least in the worlds I run in, they think more of Utah Valley University than any other institution. So congratulations for what you're doing, and we're just getting started. There's no end of opportunities for Utah Valley University students. I did graduate in the charter class of BYU Law School, and one of my classmates was John Valentine, who became the state senator, who single-handedly turned it from Utah Valley State College into Utah Valley University. I say single-handedly. Obviously, the students and the faculty had a role, but the political heavy lifting was done by John Valentine. And so, thank you for what you're doing. The traditions and the legacy that you're leaving is so valuable. Your degree becomes ever so valuable because the classes that come after you are going to succeed. And the fact that you are a Wolverine at Utah Valley University is going to make a huge difference in your international and national and local experiences going forward. I loved when President Holland used to say, yeah, we're Wolverines, the tough animals. He was at a group of second graders, and they thought Utah Valley were werewolves. Well, Wolverines, werewolves, it's all the same. We're going to succeed at Utah Valley University. Well, the reason I'm here today is to talk about your role as students in the international economy. The title of the talk is International Business Makes Good Business Sense and Lots of Business Dollars. Victor Hugo, famous 19th century French author, wrote Les Mis and others, said, the future of any nation depends on what is in the minds of their 18 to 22-year-olds. Well, there you are. What are in your minds right now? Are you getting an international mindset? You have a phenomenal business school dean in Norm Wright. He is Mr. International. He's lived 5 years all over the world. He and I have traveled the planet. He is very, very smooth in international settings. And that's where the future is. Whatever we're doing, whether it's technology, if a product is a technology product, it's by definition international today. Utah is becoming a center of international trade in a dramatic way. Dean McDonald mentioned that we had tripled exports in this state while I think I had something to do with it, but not very much to do with the fact that Utah is an international state in so many ways. We have, depending on how you count it, 40%, 50% of all jobs in Utah have international relationships. That's really good. Utah has more people who speak a language other than English as a second language per capita than any other state in America. How many here have lived in a country outside of America more than 3 months? Wow. I have. How many here speak a language other than English? Phenomenal. There are very, very few places in America where we can have this kind of response. This is why Utah is going to continue to be an amazing focus for international opportunities. I began in 2006, came out from Washington, D.C., had no interest in coming to Utah. Not because I'd gone to BYU, just I'd never lived here after I graduated from law school. I'd lived in the Bay Area and Los Angeles. And in Washington, D.C. for all of my career, but my wife really, really wanted to sing in the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. And she'd follow me all over the planet, and I owed her something. But I had no interest in coming here. But John Huntsman, Jr. was an experienced internationalist. He was the governor at the state at the time, and he had actually been my deputy when I was the Assistant Secretary of Commerce when he was 29 years old. And I thought, yeah, he's here because his name is Huntsman, in Washington, D.C. His name is Huntsman. Yeah, I figured out how that works. You work on a campaign, you end up working in an administration. It took about 15 seconds of conversation with John Huntsman to realize this 29-year-old is really, really smart. He speaks Mandarin. He understands what's happening in the world. He wasn't my deputy for very long because he was then sent as the youngest U.S. ambassador in 150 years to Singapore as a 32-year-old as an ambassador. But he got international. And when he became governor, he said, I want Utah to have an international spirit. And people are saying, wait a minute, Utah, you know, it's a long ways from a seaport. What's cooking here? But anyway, Governor Huntsman called up and said to me, he said, we'd like you to come. Well, first of all, my wife said, just to give you more than you want to know, my wife said, we're moving to Utah because I got into the Tabernacle Choir. And I said, well, wait, it's a long commute from D.C. to weekly practices. She said, well, you'll figure out something. The next day, the phone rang in Washington, D.C., and it was Governor Huntsman, and my wife's name is Barb. He said, hey, Lou, how's it going? I said, hey, it's fine. What's going on? He said, hey, I want you to move from Washington, D.C. and start a World Trade Center. We want to get internationalism in the state. And I started laughing. And he says, what's so funny? And I said, John, you've got really good intelligence because Barb just got in the choir yesterday, and I guess it's a welfare call because you want to give me a job. and John, the governor, laughed and said, Lou, this is Utah. Governors get revelation. Get your rear end out here. So we came out here. It is fun to see the international growth. That year of the phone call, our international exports were about $6 billion. 7 years later, when I had an opportunity to do something else at Collier's, we were up over $19 billion, tripled in 3 years. That's because Utah understands the opportunities internationally. So you all, when you're looking for the jobs, and I think that's probably one of the reasons you said, hey, look, it's lunchtime, I better come hear something. If you have the international gifts, talents, and experience, international is alive and well in Utah. We have probably now a $4 billion a year trade surplus in Utah. Those of you who are in international trade know that the United States as a whole has a deficit of about $500 billion. Utah's got a positive cash flow with the rest of the planet. We've got international jobs. The high-tech jobs, as I mentioned, by definition are international. You know, by a click of the internet, you can be talking to the rest of the world. That wasn't the way it was 16 years ago when I first came to Utah Valley University. But you've been leaders in this, and it's exciting to see those opportunities go forward. You know, the old paradigm was your first 20 years, 24 years, you got school, and the rest of the time you're just working. Now it's a lifetime learning. And I appreciate what the dean and others are doing to have stackable credentials. You have opportunities to get these kind of degrees, and you have the grit at Utah Valley that sometimes some others at other universities in the state might not have grit. Take that for what it's worth. My colleague, Brian Welch, should be here. He's the chief marketing officer for my company, which is doing very well, Collier's International. It even has the internationalist name. Brian is there in the back, and he is, in fact, a proud Wolverine or werewolf or whatever we're called these days. And he's been a marvelous diplomat for what's happening at Utah Valley University, to know what is really part of this. Well, some counsel for international, those of you who are looking to go international. First of all, I love the fact that all those hands went up raising, yes, I speak another language. I spent 2 years as an LDS missionary in Germany. When I think about those experiences, it changed my life. I became an internationalist. And Goethe, a great German poet, said, he that only speaks one language sees the world with only one eye. So if you don't speak another language, pick a language and learn it. It's a great way to become more of an internationalist. The other thing you have going for you is in today's world, crossroads is a big buzzword. Brigham Young said, this is the place, drive on, or this is the place, question mark, drive on. Whatever he said, Utah is in fact the crossroads of the West. You look at a map in the western United States to go north to south, between California and the Mississippi, you pretty much, the most efficient way is to drive trucking north and south through Utah. UPS has a big shipping center in Salt Lake City. 600 trucks a day from UPS, depending on the day, come through here. We are rebuilding totally our airport, $3.6 billion. When it's done, we're going to scrape all of the old airport and just have this brand new, incredible airport. For our size of our city, we deserve an airport like Colorado Springs. Why should we have this? It's because geographically, we are, in fact, in the middle of the West. Delta figures that out. It's a great hub. It's pretty much 1 hour everywhere. What are we trying to put right now? The legislature, besides looking at more money from Utah Valley University, they're looking at inland port. We're 1 day's truck drive from the 4 major ports on the western coast. Seattle, Portland, Los Angeles, Long Beach, San Diego, Oakland. We are 1 day's travel from that. You can do a lot more good by just putting your container from China on a truck. Don't even break bulk, as they call it. Don't worry about customs, and get it up here to Utah and then distribute it from here. Utah has 3 major interstates going through it. We've got, next to Chicago, the only place in America, at least in the West, where you can go in 11 different directions on a railroad. This is why this inland port is such an interesting opportunity, and it works with, also very closely with the new airport. I serve as a state transportation commissioner. We have got brilliant infrastructure in this state. When people in my downtown Salt Lake area are complaining I-15 is bad and all this, I have to say to them, have you ever been to Los Angeles? Have you ever driven in DC? Our roads are phenomenal. We spend $1.5 billion a year upgrading them for a state of 3.2 million people. The Olympics put us on the international calendar as well. We have got the world's attention. People know where Utah is. In my business, the commercial real estate business, we have had every month we have is better than the month before. Because people are in the world of investing, they're saying, hey, look, I'm from China. I know I'm very comfortable with California, very comfortable with the coast. But man, California is overpriced. New York's overregulated. Portland's a parking lot. We've got to invest somewhere else. And we're a terrific secondary market now for commercial real estate investors. And they like what they see when they come here. They fly in. I don't know how many times we've had people say, I'm here, but I have to fly into Salt Lake Airport. What is it, an hour and a half to your office in downtown Salt Lake? I say, on a bad day, maybe 14 minutes. They go, yeah, real funny. Try it. It's really working. So for all of those reasons, Utah has become a golden international destination. Well, we're living at the crossroads not only of trade, but of ideas and culture. When I speak German, I think like a German, which has its downsides now and then. But I'm sure those of you who speak Chinese, you feel more like you're, back in the Middle Kingdom. We used to love joking with Governor Huntsman because he's such an internationalist. Speaks Mandarin. He served a LDS mission in Taiwan. He lived there 3 years with the Huntsman Corporation. Then he was ambassador in Malaysia, where he spoke Chinese for several years. We would invite, when I was with the World Trade Center in particular, a lot of ambassadors want to come to Utah. They've been hearing about it. Why should I come? Governor Huntsman, we'd say, hey, we've got the ambassador from Germany coming. He'd say, oh, that's fine, that's interesting. We got the ambassador from Portugal. Oh, that's interesting. But we'd say, we got the 3rd deputy assistant postmaster from somewhere in China coming. That's great, bring him on in. And when he's such a marvelous diplomat. He'd be so gracious to everybody. But when he was speaking Mandarin to somebody, he was a different man. Mandarin man. He would leap forward and just get into talking his language with him. And it makes a huge difference. And that's why he's now an ambassador for the 4th time. I guess most of you know he's our U.S. ambassador to Russia, which has got to be the toughest job on planet Earth. I can only imagine. But he is a product of Utah, of becoming an internationalist at a young age and staying that way forever. So I urge you to do that. The other things, couple things that I urge you to do as well is that's what old people do when they come talk to the people who are going to be paying their Social Security. First of all, you're not going to have the same job forever. I have a father-in-law, the 98-year-old who just got the honorary degree from Utah State University. He had one job. Well, he was an Army officer in World War II, graduated from Utah State. He came back with a GI Bill, went to Harvard Law School, did very well, went out to Los Angeles and founded a law firm, which is co-founded a law firm now called Latham & Watkins, the largest law firm on planet Earth. I mean, it is behemoth. It's in, 30 countries. He was one of the co-founders of that. I was just making a list because fathers-in-law like that. I've been a lawyer. I've been an Army officer. I've been political, hack, probably is the word, junkie. I've been in business. I've been a CEO of a company. I've worked for a nonprofit. I've been a diplomat. I've been on boards. So what does my father-in-law think? My son-in-law can't hold a job. I said, look, Dad, that's just the way it is today. The international economy is a little different. So just a reminder. I really do say also, Utah's got a brand. We hosted 40 of our top national brokers from my company from all over the United States here this last couple days. They loved coming to Utah. Their comment, most of them had been here to ski, but they'd never been to downtown Salt Lake. They never really talked to people, who lived in Utah because they got the airport and 30 minutes later they were on the ski slopes. Great comment. The guy from New York said, who's Italian-American, he said, I just love the Italian spirit here in Salt Lake City. I said, really? He says, yeah, Moroni, he's got to be Italian, right? Moroni on the temple? I said, well, maybe, whatever it works. If it helps you sell a piece of real estate, yeah, probably he's Italian. But the reality is we have a reputation of being clean, a place that's clean and friendly and open and collaborative. We get things done. We actually like each other. We want to see each other succeed, which is not, spoiler alert, the way the rest of the world sometimes works as well. So part of that is the integrity we show here, the work ethic. I've got a lot of notes, but we don't have a lot of time. My two changes in my life that made me an internationalist came both on Friday afternoons. Just a thought. And it was because I was willing to work hard. I was a young lawyer in Los Angeles in a law firm. This is before any of your parents were probably born. And we had a client who had invented something called a windsurfer. Probably know what that is. He'd been a surfer. He was a sailor. Put a sail on it. He patented it. Our firm helped him on all of those things. He wanted to he wanted to get it certified in Europe in those days. You had to go to every country. This is 1981 probably, before the EU got big. He wanted to have it taken care of so that the certification would work because he was going to a trade show in Holland the following week. And so he came in on Friday afternoon and said, okay, I got to get this certified. Which of you guys, he didn't say it, but he said to the senior partner who came to us and said, okay, it's Friday afternoon, it's summertime, everyone had Dodger tickets or they headed to the beach. Who's going to stay here and work on this over the weekend so Hoyle Schweitzer, the inventor of the windsurfer, can sell this board next week in the trade show he's taking in Holland? And, I was the youngest guy in the room, and everyone looked at it and said, hey, man, I'm out of here. I got sand surfing and my kids to look at. So I spent that weekend, I called my wife, said, look, I lost this deal, but I've got to follow up and get this thing done. And speaking German, Dutch, close enough, it worked out. So we had a long weekend, worked on it, and from then on in my law firm, again, early 1980s, I was the international guy. They got a phone call, they couldn't understand the language, hey, give it to Cramer, he's the international guy. And it really was fun because, if you can speak one language, you can fake just about anything else. You can order ice cream or something else in a lot of languages. And so as an international guy, our firm also was the one, we were representing the 1984 Summer Olympics. We were the law firm for the Olympics. And our senior partner came in and said, hey, Cramer, we're doing the Olympics, haven't done it in America for a long time. We want to have hosts there who can speak other languages. Is there any way, you're our international guy, is there any way that you know anybody that can maybe speak another language? And I said, yeah, just every returned missionary that was my speaking, ecumenically, every returned missionary I know can do it. So we put it together. It worked really well. And then when the opportunity came to go back to to Washington, D.C. and work in the Reagan administration, the fact that I was an international guy was a huge advantage because I was asked to work on international trade deals there. So the second Friday afternoon experience, and this is all the point of working hard and showing up and other things, the second interesting thing came. I was serving as a deputy assistant secretary, which is a great job. It's high enough that you can have some fun, but it's not so high that the Washington Post writes bad stories about you. And we were working on international things, and the Secretary of Commerce said, on a Friday afternoon, sent the message to my boss, who was an undersecretary at the time, I need a report on trade and what's going on in several countries on Monday morning, because I'm going to be talking to the president's cabinet about this, about these trade numbers. Trust me, this is 1987, before the internet. I mean, many years before the internet. Assignment like that is, you had to go to the library, you had to type it up on a word processor. You all have no idea how much fun that assignment was. And the undersecretary was looking around and said, Cramer, you're closest guy to me. Would you handle this? And I said, I'm not an economist. He wanted an analyst, but I'll talk to the economist. So there were some really smart career economists at the Department of Commerce. Good guys, but they were at the Department of Commerce as long-timers, because they didn't work past 5 o'clock any day. I mean, the world could be ending, at 6 o'clock, they'd say, hey, you got an hour on your own. I'm out of here at 5, right? So it's Friday afternoon. It's again in the summertime. And I saw these 3 economists, really good guys, my friends, career guys, walking by, and I said, still remember, hey, Henry, can you help me? The Secretary of Commerce wants this. It's going to be used for the governor on Monday. And we got an opportunity to do a good job on this, the young, eager beaver that I was. And the career guy looks at me and goes, Cramer, you got a personal problem. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday morning. I said, what? Anyway, so I called my wife. Hey, I've got to do this on my own. We put a report together with some other willing volunteers. The Secretary of Commerce liked it. The President liked it. And when a vacancy came up to be the new Director General of the U.S. Commercial Service that Tom mentioned, which is one of the great jobs in America, because you work with 100 embassies around the world with truly dedicated people. The Secretary of Commerce said, hey, I like that report. Are you available? I said, put me in, coach. And that was yet another opportunity. Hard work, being able to, pull a group together and know international. And it just was the beginning of a great relationship with the Secretary of Commerce and some other things that were happening. So all those things are part of the opportunities you have. Keep learning. A good hint I got early on was find out what your boss is reading and read that. If somebody's doing international trade and you're not reading The Economist, you're not really doing international trade. Mentors. I love being a mentor. I have been mentored by some of the best in the business. I worked directly for 5 cabinet officers. Each of them were there for a special reason. The other lessons learned, keep reading. I was with a guy last night who just said, so many of the, even at Utah Valley University, so much of the time is spent on remedial assistance in reading and math for those who graduate from high school. If you can read, if you can write, the world is yours, so keep doing that going forward. Connecting. I learned early on that people love to connect with each other. LinkedIn, I'm not very good at LinkedIn because I'm still so focused on the old school, but I have been so blessed by connections I've made. I spent 20 years in Washington, D.C., went to, it seemed like 1,000 receptions, and every single reception I went to, I felt like it was valuable. Made a connection. It's just what international business is about. We always say that the most important distance, if you're doing international business, may not be the 8,000 miles that Dean Wright has to go to Dubai, but it's the last 2 feet when you're actually there, shaking a hand, looking somebody in the eye, giving them a business card and saying to that man or woman, can I do business with you? And those connections are great. I went to Hale Center Theater last night, which is a great theater. If you want to spend some time, go to Hale Center Theater. They had a little party for some board members and all, and I was just walking in, and there was a very nice gentleman in front of me holding the door open, and I said, hey, I'm Lew. He says, hey, I'm Gene. Da-da. I said, what do you do? And he said, actually, I provide the storage rooms, I don't know, 10,000 square feet for all the costumes at Hale Center Theater. He said, what do you do? I said, well, I run a commercial real estate company. And he said to me, you know, I've got an extra 3 acres right behind my building. It's right on I-15. I need some help. Do you know anybody that might want to help me find the best way to use that property? And I just said, you know, Gene, this is your lucky day. Here's my card. What can we do? Connections make a difference. So just as a reminder, when I went to Washington, D.C., there was a young at the time, 2-star general that was gracious enough to spend some time with me. And his name was Colin Powell. For those of you who don't know, he became Secretary of State and a 4-star general and National Security Advisor. But he said, any event you go to and you want to remember who you were there, always send them a handwritten note. 98% of the people don't do that, but they will remember those handwritten notes. I thought, and it's so much easier today with an email to do that, but it made a big difference. And I wrote a lot of handwritten notes, and I got them from Colin Powell back and from others. So connecting is important, and there's so many opportunities for you to do that. I am told that I will be shot at 12:15 if I don't stop. And I'd love to have a dialogue with you on this, and I hate to get shot. So I had just 2 or 3 other comments, and I'd love to have some question and answers. The reality is we are going at you know, the Chinese proverb was, may you live in interesting times. We're really living in interesting times. The pace of change is phenomenal. We're going from a unipolar world to a multipolar world, which means, you know, in the olden days, everybody had to revolve about what does the United States want to do. There are market, there are political, there are military. And now it's a multipolar. What does China think about this? And we have a superb governor in Governor Herbert. He is 85% approval rating. The joke is in a survey, 85% approval rating, and the other 15% didn't understand the question. I mean, he is so good, and he's so good internationally, and he's willing to do this. And, you know, Norm and I have traveled with him. You know, you just put him on a plane, and just as an example, we went to China, and the governor had never been to China. And he said, you know, why do I need to go anywhere outside of Utah? All I want is a really good chocolate milkshake, great burgers. I'm not going to get those in China. We said, Governor, we'll get you a great milkshake. We'll get you great opportunities. But you need to come and see it yourself. There's nothing like, you know, flying into Shanghai for 40 minutes by, you know, thousands of 40-story buildings to realize, hey, this is a little different world. And they have no idea what Utah is. So we said to the governor, and you need to give, we're going to meet with the mayor of Shanghai. He said, well, I don't want to give just a normal gift, you know, of natural arts or something. What is the one thing people know about Utah? And I don't know, Norm, maybe you were the one that said to it, it's the Utah Jazz. Utah Jazz? That's the one thing they know. You know, snow, they don't know. Mormon Tabernacle, forget it. They know Utah Jazz. And so we went to Greg Miller, who owns the Jazz. His family owns the Jazz. And we said, can we get some autographed balls, basketballs? And we put them in plexiglass for the mayor of Shanghai and for the Central Committee members. And I said to Greg Miller, this is so great. How can we thank you for that? And he said, just find a 7-footer who can really shoot from the perimeter, right? But we got over there, and we got asked a lot of questions about the Utah Jazz by the Chinese, because in this worldwide, excuse me, internet-connected world we live in, they know about us. 100 years ago, we didn't even know that China existed. 15 years ago, if the Chinese economy was having a bad time, who cares in America? Now, when they sneeze, we get a cold. This is such an interrelated world, and Governor Herbert is such an exponent of getting out there and making these personal connections to make it happen. He likes to quote, the most important distance in international business is the last 3 feet. We have such good international connections because of the work of people in Utah, but we're still not as well known as we should be. We love touting Utah Valley University. I was with President Holland one time back in Utah, and he was back in New York City. He was talking about the roots of knowledge, and he was talking about and showing pictures and all this, and somebody at the end of the presentation finally said, President Holland, where is Utah Valley University? And I still remember, because Matt was relatively new as president, he goes, well, it's in Orem, Utah. The people in New York go, okay, where's Orem, Utah? So, you know, we've got to realize we are a small part of a very big world, but the very big world wants to know more about us because of all these exciting things that are going on. Well, with that, I want to close with and then have questions, with a quote by Alexander Schweitzer. And this, I think, one of the reasons I enjoy International so much is because of the truth of this saying. He was talking to a group of college graduates in his autumn of his life. His younger, Alexander Schweitzer, I think Nobel Peace Prize. He was the doctor that went to Africa, blessed people's lives. Just an amazing man, a great organist, one of the great icons of the 20th century. He said, speaking to a group of young college graduates, "I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I know, the only ones among you who will be really happy are those who sought out and found out how to serve." That's one of the great things about Utah Valley University, the people that I'm so proud to work with, is you know how to serve. And you will only really be happy if you're doing that. And you can serve by blessing others, by being mentors, by going overseas and lifting those in poverty and blessing the lives of those. As our marvelous president here said, as Astrid, her stories are just phenomenal as I see that. But we expect this of you. The legacy that we have here in Utah and the brand that we are building will be powerful going forward. I salute you for being part of this great experiment at Utah Valley University. Expect great things out of you. After all, my Social Security, you guys are on the line. So anyway, thanks so much. Go Utah Valley University. Go Wolverines. Go Werewolves. Go everybody. Thank you so much. Okay. And questions? 8 minutes of questions. 7 minutes of questions. Or comments. Or an early dash to the snack bar. Comments? And I'd love to know where you're from, or if you're Utahns or not. Yes, sir. What are one or two practical things you can start doing now as students? Well, first you can look for other students here who are international and become friends with them and welcome them, number one. You can learn another language. You can develop a really good competency in your core interest. And it's more and more people say, like Procter & Gamble, I don't want to hire an international guy. I want to hire somebody who's really good in digital media or whatever it is, and then we'll teach him to be international. But if you already have a language skill, if you already have had some international experience, if you want to do that, the fact that you're a really good P&G guy, man or woman, makes a huge difference in your international experience. And I think traveling international, as with Governor Herbert, he said, do I really need to go to China? I said, Governor, you have to walk the streets, see the people, feel their enthusiasm. They're on a moving sidewalk. We got to catch, but you got to see that for yourself. So, semesters abroad. There's a lot of lectures going on. World Trade Center, go on the website. We have programs. Most of those lunches are free. We have, let's see, this March 19th, the ambassador of Hungary is here. He speaks better English than I do. But he will be here talking about Hungary and opening doors. We had the ambassador of Austria 2 weeks ago. Isn't that funny? The ambassador, when I was in Washington, D.C. 30 years ago, when I first got there, the ambassador from Austria had it on his business card. Ambassador of Austria, asterisk, it said, it's a country in Central Europe. It's not a continent in the South Pacific. So get to know what's going on. Read The Economist. But thanks for the question. And where are you from? I'm
from Layton.
Layton, right. Well, good things are happening in Layton. Very good things. You've got a great mayor. At least I knew Bob Stevenson well. Oh, thank you. Any other questions? Anybody still awake? Yes, sir. What did I view in my career as a setback, able to overcome it? I'm a pretty upbeat guy. Maybe I hide that. I try not to let that out, but I appreciate it. Well, one thing was, I graduated from the charter class of BYU Law School. If you think people don't know where Utah is today, BYU with a law school in 1976, there were no jobs. It was a recession time. I think we had 3 recruiters from out of the state who came. I got one of those 3 jobs in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley. But it turned out, I thought all my life, I'll be a West Coast litigator, in front of court, and everybody watches, the movies. And it turned out I didn't like being a litigator. It's just, I didn't like arguing with people all day long. And so I viewed that kind of a setback, but I talked to my brother-in-law, who was a partner in a law firm in LA, and said, you don't have to be miserable. Come on down to LA and you can be a transaction lawyer. So I think that setback, which was a bad decision, turned into a really good decision because it allowed me to go to this law firm that was the law firm for the 1984 Olympics and great political contacts and also. You know, life's a climb. I've had a marvelous life, but I remember somebody saying, yeah, Cramer, your life's wonderful. I'm thinking that when he had that conversation with me, my mother had just died, which was okay because she was 85, but my daughter had a miscarriage, my son-in-law was diagnosed with cancer, and my best friend, who was my partner, decided to retire. I'm thinking, but it all works out. You know, we chose this, I guess. We chose this life, and we are so blessed. Keep answering your question. I have a friend who's, I worked with the Reagan administration, now a senior person in the Trump administration. He left in between. He was a lawyer making $1 million a year in D.C. And he was out golfing with another one of his partners. And his partner said, hey, Bob, what would you do if you won the lottery? And my friend looked at me and said, are you kidding? We have won the lottery. Here we are. We're Americans, first of all. We've got jobs and blessings. You know, look at the rest of the world. We are so blessed. And that means we have to bless others. So how's that for a roundabout answer to a really good question? Okay. Yes, sir, the handsome gentleman below the, also a handsome gentleman with his hand up. Yeah, besides learning a language, the practical skills, I think the digital media world, you know, youth is no handicap. I mean, there's nobody in this world that's had 25 years in digital media, right? Right, Dan? Yeah. I mean, you know, yeah, digital media. But I, no question, I mean, the interactive skills are critical. And, you know, we're on the fourth industrial revolution. You know, Britain had the first and we've had the second. Wait a minute, there's one more in between there somewhere. The fourth, though, is going to be artificial intelligence and other things happening. That's based on automation and other things. But at the end of the day, you know, robots need to take commands from somebody. Drones have to be guided. And to the extent you have good human interactions, I think that's powerful. You know, disclosure, because I'm almost through talking. I'm not very smart, but I sure like friends. I've got some great mentors and friends that have been helpful to me. You read that you're an average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I spend time with people like Norm Wright and Tom McDonald and other mentors, and that's blessed my life forever. So build relationships and keep those relationships going. I hope that's good counsel. But that helps internationally otherwise. We were in Saudi Arabia in December. I was with a wonderful guy named Owen Fuller. He's a big deal at Lucid Software. And, you know, I said, hey, let's go see some sites. He said, I want to go into a supermarket and just see what the people in this country are, you know, what are they buying? How much does it cost? And he says, I do that everywhere I go. And I think when I travel, I love to walk around cities. You know, anybody can, you know, take an Uber or whatever, but you get to know people by walking there, by eating alone, by ordering, by becoming friends. So, and you've got such advantages. I just think, how in the world did we ever set up, you know, trips to Europe 30 years ago? Now you just go Airbnb and you're done. So anyway, take advantage of those opportunities. How about the last question? That will keep my lunch date intact. Yes, sir. How to be more successful on a day-to-day basis? Good question. I think, I still remember my freshman year, I was at Stanford, and the professor, I mean, the president of the university got up there, he looked like he was about 300 years old. And he said, take the long view, you know? And Bill Clinton, and I was not a member of his party, you could probably guess, but he used to say, ignore the headlines, follow the trend lines. Ignore the headlines. I mean, you know, we're going to get through all this thing, for better or worse. But, you know, Woody Allen said, you know, 80% of life is just showing up. And, you know, go to class, be friendly to somebody. I think if you look at ways to serve others, you know, you take your mind off your own problems. We've got family issues, and I'm telling some of my family members, look, forget yourself. Go out there and help somebody. Just reach out, you know, and think above yourself. I'm a big believer, you know, eat your vitamins. My wife's a vegan for 7 years, which is not easy. I'm kind of a jack vegan, you know, like today. But she said the other day, we had a friend who died, and I said, well, when I die, you know, you can remarry. And she goes, you're safe. I said, why is that? She said, who's going to marry a vegan? I said, yeah, that's right. But anyway, be a friend and make friends. My life is my friends. I am just so blessed by, and I've been so lucky. John Huntsman, it was my deputy. It could have been anybody. I just happened to get a guy named Huntsman just to pick somebody. So stay in touch with friends, serve others. The old story, apply sunscreen, all that other stuff. But the reality is, you have so many opportunities here. One final comment I should say, though, is that you're not going to remember a word I said. I mean, I know how it is. I'm not even going to remember what I said. But I am going to remember how I felt about being with really good people. And I went through law school. I can't remember much, but I was with John Valentine and Robert Groh and the federal judge and 4 LDS general authorities. These are my friends from those days, and those are the friends you ought to be making. You look at who's next to you. That person may be a United States senator or something even more reputable in his life, or her life. But make friends and have fun with them. And I am so grateful again for the chance to be here, and if I don't get here, I don't get lunch. Thanks so much. Go to the Wolverines.